Welcome to our podcast. Guys, we have Raman Pushkar with us. He's he's an individual who has embraced yoga for some time and is there to speak to us about yoga and its benefits, particularly during COVID situation that we are going through. I hope the session is useful to all of us. Raman, why don't you get started by sharing a bit about yourself with our listeners?
Sure. First of all, thank you, Srikanth, for organizing this session. I think during this COVID times, it's really beneficial for many of us to tune into this kind of energetic discussions. So about myself, I'm a management consultant and well-being enthusiast, and mostly more into yoga. That has been my passion for quite a many years, and willing to do more on this area. It's a never-ending journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Raman, for that. What actually triggered this interest of yoga and wellness, Raman? What actually prompted you get into that space?
Sure. Good point, Srikanth. I think in everyone's journey, there might be some trigger. Like you have been a great traveler and you have seen so many places and a blogger, and you encourage everyone to explore the world. So I think for me, one of the triggers was in my childhood. My father used to teach me how to do headstand. It's called as Shirsasana, and some bit of pranayama, breathing techniques. And I did it in my childhood continuously. But after I got into the college and then to job, I lost the touch. And later on, when I started feeling there's something which I'm missing a lot, was that going back to yoga, and then started doing some kind of
Okay.
amount of research. And I felt, okay, I should do it from more regularly and learn to do a few more asanas, and as well as know it practically, as well as know philosophically also what is the purpose, what is the need for doing this. And that's where I ended up doing yoga for my own well-being. And the interest grew so much that then I started sharing with many people within my circle, network, and my organizations and everywhere.
Great. That's truly inspirational. So, uh, who do you actually follow in the yoga space, Raman? Any people whom you look up to in this journey?
Yeah, I think in my college days, there used to be a youth day. For this particular day, we used to get people coming from Sri Ramakrishna Math, and they spoke about Swami Vivekananda. And from then, I was inspired how Swami Vivekananda has taken yoga and our well-being to such a next level, because we assume always yoga as a physical activity, but yoga also has a multidimensional perspective on connecting the body, mind, and soul. And he spoke more about the spiritual or the self-awareness aspect, and I was really touched by it. And that's where my thirst for yoga grew fourfold from then. And with regard to specifically to physical yoga, or probably let's say on teachings of yoga asanas, I have been quite fortunate to learn and also be in their authentic schools. For example, Swami Shivananda's yoga school, or be it B.K. Iyengar's way of doing yoga, or K. Pattabhijoy's Ashtanga yoga. I have been following all these gurujis, basically the teachers in yoga path, and they have given so much back to India and to the world in terms of the yoga journey. And even today, if we read their texts and the great books, it gives a lot of inspiration on how health and well-being is so crux for our living, our day-to-day living. And yeah, these are my inspiration.
Great. Thanks for sharing those, Raman. And I'll look at the links of the yoga gurus that you have mentioned so that our listeners can also benefit by practicing a few yogasanas there. Raman, I'm sure you have been practicing yoga for a very long time. Has any of the asanas that you follow or practices that you follow changed during the COVID pandemic time? How has those changes been helpful to you?
Yeah, I think Most of the times when we do any physical activities, it talks about giving you strength or giving you much more rigor, energy, and all those aspects. But yoga is something which also helps you to get rid of things which you shouldn't be going through, and also gives you a lot of strength and focus in whatever you're doing every day beyond your physical benefits. So that way I felt yoga has helped me a lot to keep calm, be at peace in spite of so many things that are happening around, right? You'll hear some news about in the someone in the family, something has happened in the office and everywhere. There's so much of stress across. And that's where yoga lets you to be much more, what do you say, accept the things which what's happening around. And as a human, right, we have the tendency to react immediately. But in these
Yes.
situations, yoga helped me to be more resilient and be mindful and respond to the situation, not to react. So it has not just helped me on the physical side, also on my emotional, spiritual, and social side of it also.
Great, great. Raman, so you spoke about mindfulness, and mindfulness is one such area that has been very talked about in the corporate world. So, how can someone who is looking at yoga to start yoga and also probably bring in mindfulness into it? Would you have any tips there?
Sure, sure. Great point, Srikanth. Given so much of distractions we have these days and influx of unlimited news, and the access to the information is like at the tip of our hand. And with this situation, we need to be thoughtful about what we need to see, what we need to hear. I think filtering is so important for us, and especially for being mindful. I think yoga talks about using breathing techniques to bring attention to your breathe, because breathe is something which will be there with us from the time we are born to the time we will be dying. So you can keep your breathe as your anchor. And many times we say, okay, just count 1 to 10 when you are in very deep anger or you have anxiety, right? Again, nothing but going back to some kind of an point within your body where you can tag around. So that way, breathe really helps. So in yoga, we have pranayama, a breathing power, very powerful breathing technique. If we do that, it it helps us a lot in terms of you are not really digressed and you're not deviating from your whatever you're supposed to do. If I am with Srikanth today in the podcast, I should be here physically and mentally and psychologically also. I shouldn't be, wondering about my when is my next meeting, or oh, there's some action pending from my previous meeting. If I'm not there in the current right now, I will never be able to enjoy that. So
Yeah,
that
that's it.
way, some of the tips I would say that if you're eating, just do eating. If you're watching a TV, just watch TV. If you're checking the phone, just do one activity at a time. I think the days are gone of multitasking. It's a bit a vague term, because multitasking, we assume doing everything at a time. No, multitasking is basically you are you should have a multi skill set of knowing different things, but doesn't mean you should do everything at the same time.
Yeah, thanks, Raman, for demystifying multitasking there for our listeners. So, Raman, my next question to you is: many of us are also staying at home with the indefinite work from home kind of a situation that we are all in. So, would you have any tips for our listeners, be it people who are working from home, who have kids at home, or are in the IT and knowledge processing sector where we end up spending a lot of time before our laptops and in meetings? Do you have any tips for us where we could probably practice a few of the points that you have just spoken about?
Yeah, absolutely, Srikanth. I think it's quite more important these days that we focus also on ourselves. And one of the best tips is we ignore our eyes, especially eyes and ears, right? So today we are exposed to the laptop indefinitely, and then we have access to the smartphones so much, and then to the television. So in and out, we are exposed to the artificial light, and that really harms our eyes, and it leads to a lot of stress to our body also, because eye is the one of the most powerful sense, and we know the value of it. So that way, there is a netra yoga which people can do to improve their eyesight, and we have pranayama, as I mentioned earlier, breathing technique also to improve your bringing the focus and energy. Then we have something called as Brahmari Pranayama. It is focusing on the second important sense, which is the listening or hearing sense. This improves your listening and hearing sense together, along with also focusing on improving your eyesight. So these three, I would say, has a high impact for us, because what happens as we age, our senses get what do you say more detrited, and that's where we need to help them to maintain them on a regular basis. But what we are doing is that because of lack of time and lack of focus, we are taking them for granted. So we need to relook at this. These are very basic and gentle exercises which can be done by any person at any age group. There is no any limitations. But yoga has also the physical aspects, but I'm not touching those. But these is like 80-20 rule. If you do this, most of the times you are in control. When we are in control of our thoughts, automatically our actions are in control. Then I have the liberty and the empowerment to take my body to do anything. You can do it any other exercises if you want, if you are in control of your mind.
Yeah. Makes absolutely sense. And Raman, if you don't mind me asking, I have seen a few pictures where you're doing yoga along with your son. So how did you actually influence him into embracing yoga along with you? What is the secret there?
Yeah, sometimes they tell that, right? The people observe by example. So when I started doing at home, and then also doing organizing some sessions for people around in the community, he started observing me, and he felt, okay, Papa, I would also like to go along with you. So he did one or two sessions with me. Then he felt, no, I want to make it much more. You do more physical activities. This doing gentle yoga is quite boring for me. I said, no, beta, that this is the start, and you should actually first start with these gentle, and then we would obviously move on to the physical, the body movements. So that way, sometimes I have to tell him that start with this, which he doesn't like because he's young, still at the age. So that way he does it, and then physical ones he's very excited, because there are different formats of yoga where you can also make it more like a military way, or much more robust, like you keep doing rapidly continuously. That way you are burning much more calories and you're sweating continuously. That's much more kind of flow yoga, where you can keep doing it. And you have other yoga also where you could do completely slow, and it's much more for relaxation and just calming yourself down.
Okay, makes absolutely sense. Thanks, Raman, for sharing on those. Raman, I know it has been a good discussion. Would you have any final recommendations, suggestions for our listeners, anything that you would want to share before the podcast?
Sure, Srikanth. I would encourage everyone that practice is the only key for success. Keep doing whichever physical or mental well-being activities you're doing. Please do it regularly. Give back that 1 hour out of 24 hours for your body, right? Remaining 23 hours is yours. If you can't even give back that 1 hour, then it becomes difficult in long run. And we may not realize it immediately, because the many things to your advantage, probably your age, probably the way you are operating, but it may not be long lasting. So advice is start giving that 1 hour every day, and you will see amazing things happening to you. And I would say the body is like a worship, right? You have to worship your body. If you don't take care of it, it'll never take care of you. So make sure you have a holistic well-being, and embrace it, and also do share some of the in the journey how you progress, improving yourself and as well as your community together.
Great. Thanks, Raman. It was really great hearing you on yoga and well-being in the time of COVID, and also some of those tips where giving back at least 1 hour of our time, of our busy schedules, back to our body, so that it can take care of the rest of the 23 hours that we are going to spend on various activities. So thanks very much for sharing on some of the tips and areas that probably we as busy individuals in today's corporate world could focus on. Thanks very much, and it was great talking to you. So listeners, that's Raman sharing a few tips on how we could embrace yoga and focus on our well-being from time to time. I'll be sharing the resources in the comments in the podcast. So stay tuned and looking forward to many more podcast sessions with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Srikanth. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, Raman. Bye.